Starting to see, I can clearly see, been fooling me. When I watch TV, they're manufactured views all over the news. It's giving me the blues, and it's time to choose. Starting to wake up from this sleep, from all the lies they spread that run so deep. But I will raise no more. Who are they fighting for? It isn't me. But now I see there is a new world order, but we're not invited. So much blood and murder from the drones unsighted. World War III, it's haunting me. I've got to find a way to save my family. The human race has lost its way. We put our trust in science, but it's us who pay. Used to be civilized, but we've been compromised. We're on a one-way train. We gotta break this chain. Starting to see that we should be free. The powers that be want a piece of me. Should I do what they say or tell them go away? What is the price of freedom? Cause it sure ain't free. The time has come to raise the bar. There'll be nowhere to hide if there's a third world war. So let your voice be heard and let your heart decide to stand and fight for freedom while you've still got time. Wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up. Stand up. Stand up, stand up. Wake up, wake up. The time has come to fight. Wake up, wake up. Don't waste another night. Stand up. What are you waiting for? Stand up, stand up. Oh, they're gonna soon be at your door. Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News on this Monday evening. It's the 15th of July 2019. It's the day after Bastille Day and of course the day after my stepson's birthday as well. So happy birthday to you, Connor. If you happen to be listening somewhere over there in Skeggy, I very much doubt it. He'll be out having a good time with his mates and stuff like that. So good evening to you. I hope you had a great weekend. Myself and Ade are here for your edification and your delight this evening. Good evening, Ade. How you doing, me old mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. I'm once again drove past your house today, but didn't have time to stop, which is typical of me, but there you go.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's a big house. It's a long way from one end to other for you to be able to stop in. You know, it is quite difficult. Yeah. Have you had a good weekend, pal? Have you been able to get out on your motorbike?
I did. I got out on my bike, so big smiles and happy and didn't get wet, which is all the better. So anyway, what got cracking on tonight?
Well, we've got a guest who, as you know, I've not been booking guests. Simply because I don't know where I'm going to be and whether I'm going to be in hospital. I've got operations and shit lined up. So I've not been booking guests, but this guest got in touch with us, reached out to us. And obviously I was very, very interested in what he got to say. So without further ado, let's introduce our guest tonight. It's Jonathan Royle. He's a doctor. He's Dr. Jonathan Royle. He's a PhD in hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, all that sort of stuff. And he's got a new film. He's involved in a new film that's coming out in September. So without further ado, good evening to you, Jonathan. How are you doing, mate?
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, indeed, the first week of September, there's a feature-length documentary coming out, 1 hour, 15 minutes long, called Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis, which, in a nutshell, I suppose the quickest way I can describe it is that every human being on the planet is hypnotized pretty much every waking hour of the day. They just don't realize it. But whether it's through religion, education, the legal system, the workplace, the high street, advertising, literally every area of life, there are hypnotic techniques. Some people band around the term brainwashing, more acceptable to the mass populace. People recently, in recent years, have talked about the term social engineering or social conditioning. But ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you call it social engineering, social conditioning, brainwashing, hypnosis, or whatever other title you give it, it means that people are manipulating you without your conscious awareness for their benefits and their gains and their agenda. And what the film's about is to wake people up to how this is happening and equip them with the knowledge, perception and tools to be able to be aware of it, so they can be protected to it and kind of wake up from being sleepwalking zombies.
Well, can you give some idea of your background in your past? How did you find yourself on this path? What's your background? What's your past? What's your history? I know you're probably about 5 years younger than me, from the conversation that we were having earlier on. But what's your history? What's your past? What's your background?
Yeah, I come from a bit of a weird background. There's no such thing as normal. There's no such thing as weird. It is all just perceptions. But to a lot of people, it's a bit odd. I was born on a circus. My dad's a circus clown. My mum was a sharp-shooting, whip-cracking, rope-spinning, knife-throwing cowgirl. And at the age of 3 and a bit, I became Britain's youngest professionally paid circus clown on Gandhi's Circus. And this got covered by national newspapers in England, which kind of arguably is the start of it, because that was the first time I was in a national newspaper. And although I didn't realise it at the time, when I grew up and looked back on the article and got told by my parents what they'd actually told the newspapers, it was the first incident, my first experience of newspapers at the end of the day, even if you give them the facts, the truth, the reality, and the information that should make up the story, they'll go ahead and print whatever the bloody hell they want if it suits their agenda. Reality, truth, and facts, they couldn't care one iota about. And then I grew up performing, and as I got older, I kind of rebelled against my dad because I didn't want to be a circus clown, because he got me bullied at school because I was the odd one out. But I did want the applause from an audience.
Did you get bullied because you had great big shoes?
Well, that was one of the things. Yeah, genuinely did. Yeah.
He's got a great big cup of tea and all.
It looks it could have the that's perspective, but yeah. And I wanted to avoid that bullying, and logically in my head it's because I was a clown. But I wanted to perform because I wanted the applause. I'd been conditioned to that in an almost Pavlovian, Pavlov's dog, ring the bell and the dog salivates kind of manner. So I sought out something that would rebel against my dad, something he couldn't do, which was magic. And by that I mean like magic tricks like Paul Daniels or David Copperfield, not devil worshipping magic. And I got into doing that, so I was still performing, but it was something my dad couldn't do, and I didn't have to wear the silly red nose and big shoes. So I thought that'd stop me getting bullied. Unfortunately, it didn't. Kids still saw me as the odd one out because I was appearing in the newspapers and on television and on the radio and stuff. And then I'd say when I was about 12, I started working at psychic fairs, and I claimed no psychic powers whatsoever. But I was particularly good at a thing called cold reading, which is a technique to manipulate and control people so that they believe that you're able to tell them all about themselves from cradle through to grave. And I just appeared to have a natural talent for this, but then I grew a conscience when I was about 14, 15, and thought, no. Ironically, I got approached at a psychic fair by an American guy who said, we'll offer you a load of money, and we'll even pay for your parents to relocate to America, and you'll be super rich if you come and like do the warm-up for my boss. And he mentioned this guy, and I'd never heard of him, because you've got to remember this was pre-internet days. I'm going back to about 1990 when I was 15. And he said, yeah, if you come and work for my boss, and I don't know whether he was telling the truth or not, but he said his boss was a guy called Benny Hinn. Now, in more recent years, I've discovered if you look on Google, this guy, Benny Hinn, is a multi-millionaire, possibly billionaire. evangelical preacher. One of these people who despicably takes loads of money off people at big gatherings and apparently throws them on the floor with the power of God to heal them. Except sadly, studies have shown that other than the placebo effect kicking in, that does help some people, the majority of them, any apparent help wears off when the hysteria dies down. So it was a
when the adrenaline's gone.
Pardon?
When the adrenaline's gone, I would imagine it's a lot of it. Is it adrenaline?
Exactly, adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, and all that because of the hysteria of the crowd. Exactly. So fortunately, I didn't get involved with that, but it's weird looking back that I was approached, but it did lead me into looking into ways of stopping myself. What I thought might help me stop myself from getting bullied and also cope with the damage to my own mental health at the time, frankly. And I went in the library where I used to get my magic books from, the shelves next to it, and it's still the same way in Rochdale Library. It might be in other libraries as well. Next to it was where the self-help books were. And there was a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, yeah. Dale Carnegie, read it, years ago.
Yeah, and it's a great book, more so when you're an adult. But I discovered that when you're a teenager, all these things like call the person you want to feel good about you by their first name a lot tends to get you hit more. And there again, even as an adult, if you go as a stranger into a pub and start calling somebody by the first name a hell of a lot when they don't know you, it actually is more likely to cause friction than it is to befriend you, ironically. So sadly, that didn't work. But there were also books on hypnotherapy, and I started reading some of them, used self-hypnosis on myself, and then took a course on hypnotherapy. And that ultimately led, by the time I was 16, to me still wanting applause from an audience, but I didn't want to do the stuff I had been doing. So I started doing stage hypnosis shows. Think Paul McKenna in England, or people seeing this in America, think people like Marshall Silver or Tom Silver or Richard Barker. Their names people in America all know. And yeah, I was going out hypnotizing people, getting them to do the silly things. And then I still do that to a degree, but there came a point where I grew up, because behind the scenes, I was also working freelance, kind of on a freelance basis as a journalist. And my publicist for my shows used to work for the now defunct News of the World newspaper. And stuff that was a bit, I realise now he used me heavily. But at the time I didn't realise. He'd get me to do stuff that was a bit dodgy. Not breaking any laws, but just stuff that he didn't want to end up getting connected to and looking bad. For example, he once faxed me, I'm going back to those days, faxed me a copy of a letter from the late Lord Longford. People who are not in England can search on Google and find out that Lord Longford was a campaigner for one of the Moors murderers, Myra Hindley.
Yeah.
And he wanted her released to his care and to be released from prison. And I was faxed a letter that appeared to be on his letterhead to the Home Office and various ministers saying, yes, she can come and live with me. And a short while later, i.e. the next year, that was circa end of 96. So I think it was 97 off the top of my head. I could be wrong here. It could be a little bit later than that. But by the by, the rest of it remains the same. One day, it comes on the news that, in a couple of weeks' time, Myra Hindley's up for parole again. That's mentioned, it's put out there into the ether. And then just before the date when she's supposed to be up for parole, she apparently unexpectedly dies in prison.
Yeah, I remember that. Wasn't that about 2002?
Yeah.
It was like November or something, 2002. I do remember it specifically because I was in a hotel in March in Cambridgeshire. And I remember waking up to the news that she'd died. Yeah, but you think there was something nefarious about that?
The moment I heard that, I thought, no, she's not dead. It's too close to the parole. They could never let her out because people would have just killed her. Because of the emotions so high, understandably, related to what was, the Moors murders. And I remembered this letter from end of 96, start of 97 that had come into my possession, which I did approach a few newspapers with And they were all very interested, and they did pay me what they call inconvenience fees for meeting up with them and passing on the information. But the story got repressed, basically. Nobody ever said they didn't believe the letter was real. They just said they wouldn't run with it, which was a bit odd. And then if you search Google, you'll see, as much as I suspected, that there were a number of sightings in various areas in Yorkshire of somebody had a road traffic accident. This is very easy to find on Google. Just type in Myra Hindley, still alive, road traffic accident, and it will come up. And this person recognised the person who'd bumped into a car and said, "You look like Myra Hindley." And this woman said, "You can't say that." Apparently started crying and drove off. She contacted the police and said, "I've seen Myra Hindley, she's alive." And apparently the police as good as threatened her, the story goes, to keep quiet and never repeat this. You know, make of that what you will. Could be cobblers, but from what I became privy to in 96, 97, there was an orchestrated campaign for it to be released to Lord Longford's private residence. And that's really disturbing, and it's very time sensitive to now as well, because in the past week, we're doing this on the 15th of July 2019. I know you said that earlier, but I'm saying it so that people that watch this in months and years to come can see that what I'm about to say shows itself to be true.
Okay.
In the past week, Jeffrey Epstein, the hedge fund, multi-billionaire hedge fund manager in America, has been indicted with charges of child exploitation and prostitution and stuff. Now, if you go and search on Google, you'll see that just under 10 years ago, he was indicted with such charges, and there was talk of his private jet being called the Lolita Express, and that people like Prince Edward, Donald Trump,
Prince Andrew, not Prince Edward.
Pardon?
Prince Andrew, not Prince Edward.
Prince Andrew, yeah, sorry, slip of the tongue, yeah, indeed. Yeah. Apologies to.
That's all right. I just wanted to make sure that you were right. That's all.
Yeah, indeed.
Somebody that didn't do well. Go on.
That's completely correct. I apologise to Prince Edward. And numerous celebrities worldwide are linked to having been numerous times on the flight path records for this Lolita Express, as it got termed, being taken to Jeffrey Epstein's private island that he owns, where the charges that were brought just under 10 years ago show that he had numerous underage girls being prostituted and sex trafficking and stuff. Now, the thing is, that got swept under the carpet. Somehow he got a plea deal at the time where he went away for just under 2 years, got out in much less than that. Yes, he did have to go on a sex offenders register, but the terms were such that he was still allowed to go back to his private island, and other red places where he has residences, they were loose enough that allowed him to go back. It all stand. And then it died down. Somehow, and one can only conjecture on this, somehow somebody's got the balls somewhere, or an agenda, more likely, that they've managed to. I know the victims kept campaigning, saying, "No, that's not right. They should recharge him again." But somehow they actually bloody have, and he's currently banged up, and he's been indicted with the same kind of charges. But the beautiful thing is that now people are being a bit more aware to it. If you go searching, all the documents that people turned a blind eye to just under 10 years ago are available already in the public domain now. So if you search Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book of Celebrities, Lolita Express, you will find actual handwritten pages and the flight log showing who was on his flights and how many times. So, for example, Bill Clinton was on roughly 26 times on the flight. But in the past week, his statement to an American newspaper, he claims to have only been on it 3 or 4 times. But the flight log show he was on it at least 26 times without any Secret Service accompaniment. On a flight where evidence has already come out that in the past there would be underage girls on there and a bedroom on the flight to the private island. It begs all sorts of questions. It makes you wonder Was there more truth than the media, mass media, want you to believe in what happened a couple of years ago around the presidential campaign, where there was all the talk of the Pizzagate and Pizzagate and Pedogate in America? Because if you look into that, that was all linked around the Podesta brothers. Well, certainly one of the Podestas who was running Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
And weren't those the Podesta brothers? Weren't they both in Portugal at the same time as Madeleine McCann went missing? In fact, quite close.
Well, let's look at some facts here. Now, by facts, what I mean is stuff that people can go themselves. Don't take my word for it. I never want people to believe anything I say, and we say that in the documentary. Just take it as guidance, but then go and independently research yourself. But things that there appear to be proven evidence for are this. The Podesta brothers, it appears, there is evidence, that they were in Portugal at the same time as Madeleine McCann and her family were when Madeleine McCann went missing. Apparently at the same time, or around the same time, Cliff Richard was there. I'm not saying that's got any relevance, because obviously any allegations made against him he's been fully cleared of. But we can categorically say that he had a residence, a place to go in, I can never say it, around Praia de la Cruz, the place in Portugal anyway. We can also say that it appears in stuff that's come out in the past week that it's likely that Jeffrey Epstein may have been in Portugal around that time. But if he wasn't, Freud, I forgot, I've had a mental block on his first name.
Yeah, it's Clement Freud's son, isn't it?
Clement Freud, that's it. Yeah.
Isn't it his son?
I
thought it was Clement Freud's son. Is it? Or am I thinking of something else?
You know what it might be. We want to make sure I say this right. So
no, Clement Freud was the son of Sigmund Freud. So
that's right. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. That's correct.
There's one of the Freuds. Freud.
It is Clement Freud. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, he's got a residence not far from where Madeleine McCann went missing.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, he was there at the time, and ironically, apparently, he invited Jerry and Kate to his house for dinner. Odd. But then we also know that there's photo fits that were put out, okay, of people that were, descriptions were given by witnesses.
Mm.
The odd thing is, and the way to look for this is, if you type in, is Madeleine McCann still alive? Okay. And then next to that phrase, because that alone won't be enough, so you put, is Madeleine McCann still alive? And then the word Royle, R-O-Y-L-E, my second name, and then WordPress and search. The first thing you'll get up is an entry from the 10th of November, 2016. Okay? One easier way of finding that is to go to magicalguru.com, click on where it says blog. That'll take you to my WordPress blog, and then scroll down the side and find November 2016, and then click on November the 10th, 2016, and you'll find a post. Is Madeleine McCann still alive? Are the WikiLeaks and anonymous Podesta emails and images proof that Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign manager abducted Madeleine? Are they proof that she may still be alive? Mm. And on there, you'll see pictures that the WikiLeaks released, and one of the Podesta brothers is clearly there with a group of, I'd say, teenagers and young kids. And one of them a female who may or may not look like Madeleine. That's in debate. But even if it isn't her, okay? Let's say it isn't. There's still a big question to be asked as why she sat there with cable ties around her wrist. Now, nobody seems to know where that picture was taken. But evidence, if you search Google, is out there that the Podesta brothers know Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah? And that Clinton went to his private island in Bali. And one of the Podestas was the presidential manager for Hillary Clinton. Not a massive leap to think that maybe one of the Podesta brothers, namely the one on the photograph that you can see at that link, may have gone to Jeffrey's private island. It's not a massive leap. So maybe that's where the picture was took. But even if it wasn't, it still raises the question: what the frigging hell is somebody being restrained by cable ties by the wrist for? And it also raises the question how similar both of the Podesta brothers look to one of the photo fit images that was released by the police, which is that web link that I've just given you. And also how one of the Podesta brothers' associates, Milanovic or Mikanovic, I've forgotten her name now, looks to another one of the photos on the photo fit. And then there's somebody else on the photo fit who looks like somebody who's associated to them. And then most recently in the past few days, and this is the interesting one, there's an image partway down the page I sent you to where there's 6 images on the photo fit next to Ade. So we've got the 2 Podesta brothers ruled out. There's a picture that looks like somebody with a mustache. It's a line drawing, but if you take the mustache off, some people have remarked that looks remarkably like Kate McCann, people conjecturing. And then there's one other image, bottom middle, of a woman with kind of spiky black hair looking a little bit stern, shall we say. Well, if you search Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend and restrict the searches to like the past week, you'll see that people have put up pictures of Jeffrey with his girlfriend who's been accused. People have mooted that she's involved in sex trafficking, and she looks remarkably like the other picture on the image. Now, one person looking remarkably like somebody out of photo images is coincidental, of course, because photo is not that good. But when you've got 6 images, and we've certainly got 5 of them looking like people who've also had allegations against them, also with evidence there that they were in the area at the time, you start to think, why haven't people looked into this more, i.e. the real authorities? You know?
Yeah, I mean, the Madeleine McCann thing is so... you've only got to go onto YouTube, and there is hours and hours and hours of it. People with different opinions, people with, making links to different people who either live or visit the island, etc. But I must admit, that's the first time I've heard the Clinton name linked with it.
Well, I link certainly on my blog. The link is there. I published that in 10th of November 2016. I put that out there into the public domain, and it's suddenly in the past week become even more likely because of all this stuff that's come out about Jeffrey Epstein and his girlfriend looks like the other image on the photo fit, which is bizarre. Now, I go on with all this, but one thing I do know, again, through past journalistic links, is, for example, I said about Myra Hindley wasn't dead at the time.
Yeah.
Was. I sadly believe that Madeleine McCann, if she wasn't dead at the time and was abducted, would be dead now. Unfortunately. So, I'm not saying that she's alive and going to be found in a Joseph Fritzl way, but...
Can I put something to you, please, yeah. Jonathan? Because you're on this show, and from a psychology point of view, all this, we're talking about the Madeleine McCann case, and there seems to be all these links to these different people. Do you not think that could be planted there? It's stuff, that's information that's not necessarily true or not necessarily nefarious, but fits into the narrative of what we're talking about. But what if it's just the parents that did it, and this Podesta thing is, and also the Pizzagate stuff as well? I mean, psychologically, it separates people from the people that are taking notice and the people that aren't really taking any notice, and so it separates us on that scale, and then perhaps does it drag people down a blind alley or an alleyway that don't really need to be gone down?
Right, okay. In psychology, there's a thing called confirmation bias. If you have a personal opinion or belief in something, you'll make things fit.
Yeah.
Now, that's why I say don't believe a word I'm saying or anyone else. Research it for yourself. What I would say is this. It's quite possible that she was abducted, okay? And it's as simple as that, and none of these people are involved. But if that was the case, what truly, if there's a mathematician out there, what are the odds of Podesta brother AB, Milanovic woman with the black hair, her name's on my blog. More recently, we just found out Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend looks like one of the other 4 fits. What are the odds out of five out of 6 people for which were 4 fits or line drawings, there being people who look incredibly like them, and I don't mean just a bit, I mean incredibly like them, all being in Portugal at the same time, and all of them having had independently relevant related sexual abuse or trafficking or similar allegations, or in the case.
The point I'm trying to make, Jonathan, is that right? Okay, so let's just take it as as we see it, right? This girl's disappeared. It's clear to me that the authorities are protecting the parents in this, because they've never been questioned or anything. Now, what if all these things and all these coincidences have been planted? I'm not saying they weren't real, but you know, they've been planted and put into people's consciousness, essentially to take away from the McCanns and the suspicion from the McCanns. What do you think about that?
That's really possible. And you know what? That would then add an even bigger, this needs closer attention, because the only motive for doing that would be to protect somebody even more powerful.
Yep.
So you would plant false seeds of information to be found, so that people felt that they'd found them, which kind of how hypnosis works. Lead people in, they find something themselves, they connect to that idea, and therefore it grows and becomes bigger rather than telling them directly. But the only motive for doing that is to distract from something else, which means something's getting covered up, which means in any event, it's still not as simple as it means. That would suggest that they definitely know who the bloody hell abducted.
Well, you just see, the thing is, with the Madeleine McCann case, right, it could have been a case of a child goes missing and then that story disappears completely down the drain and we never hear anything of it again. We hear it a million times with stories, right? You'll hear a story, a headline, and somebody will make some headline up about stuff. So the easiest way for the cover-up to... do you think it was because it was in a foreign land that they couldn't stick to protocol? Because they would have, let's face it, if there were anything nefarious in it, they would have just simply forgotten about it. It's like the Tunisian terror attack. Nobody ever talks about that anymore. We don't have like a week. There was supposed to be 20 odd British people killed on that beach that day. There's no memorials or anything to it, because everyone who's looked into it knows it's a complete load of nonsense. So could it be that they're trying to create this load of nonsense in order to deflect away the blame from either the parents or somebody else, or somebody the parents were on holiday with? And all these things that you're bringing up, which whilst they are still viable and things that should be looked into, but could they just be part of an elaborate story to deflect attention away from the real culprits?
That's always possible. My gut instinct, and based on what I've looked at and stuff, is that, and I could down the line be proved very wrong here, but I honestly, gut instinct, do not believe. Remember, I said before that sadly, I suspect that she's no longer with us, but I do not believe, even if she did get murdered a long time ago or on that night, I do not believe it was at the hands of either of her parents.
Can I just jump in and make a quick one? As usual, with almost everything like this, the only thing that we can be sure of is that the bullshit of the official story isn't what really happened.
Precisely.
And you could say that of 9/11, 7/7. You could say of almost Boston bombing or the Boston unbombing. You could say it about almost any of them, and that's whatever we got told on the news is what they want us to hear, and what they're telling us what they want us to.
News. You mentioned news again there. I mentioned earlier when I was going about how I got led into all this about into the media, and I've seen from behind the scenes. Also, I mean, in the early 90s, I was Britain's biggest ever media prankster. I got dubbed in 1997 when I finally exposed how I'd scammed all these media. And pretty much every national daily newspaper, tabloid and broadsheet, the lot of them, TV shows, radio shows, the lot. I was in them hundreds of times with different names, different disguises, and bullshit stories. And without any doubt that they don't give a sod about the truth. All they're bothered about is selling papers or getting viewing figures.
Yep.
And Rupert Murdoch, well, you know, to the point of getting viewing figures, or in his, well, viewing figures, because he does own television media, but also selling papers. Murdoch, as we now know, he'd say that he wasn't aware, but I categorically say there's more and more evidence out there that he was aware that illegal criminal activities were going on to fabricate stories, frame people, plant drugs on them, drug them to make them say things that they wouldn't normally say. I mean, literally drug them against the will. I actually was involved. I got drugged by Mazza Mahmood against my will, the fake sheikh of the News of the World. And I've currently got a couple of legal cases running against Murdoch's organisation in relation to such. So I can tell you from deep within that the media, certainly for as long as I've been alive, has broken the law, has suppressed stuff. They knew back in the 80s that Jimmy Savile was a serial paedophile. They locked it in a safe. They knew in 1996 that Rolf Harris was a kiddie fiddler. I know because the day his house got robbed and stuff was taken from his house, and they approached a journalist colleague of mine who then approached me and said, hawk this to other papers. But every newspaper, despite the fact there was evidence there of him being, they did buy the stuff that the thief had, a newspaper did end up buying it, I believe, but then it was locked in the safe to use as compromat, as we call it, which is the German word for blackmail material.
Yeah.
Because people in certain positions, the media protect, and the reason they do is because your likes of your Murdochs and seriously rich people. Murdoch, for example, backed every winning UK Prime Minister in decades. He controls the masses to vote for who he wants.
Of course he does.
And by the same token, he gets blackmailed, or as they call it, compromat material on them. He'll set up, well, not necessarily him, but situations will arise where those with a penchant for younger boys or girls will be offered the opportunity and filmed. They can be blackmailed into making the things happen that the powers that be want to have occur. Otherwise, they know that will get leaked. And in return, the press will not leak it and they'll cover it up, just as they've done largely with the Westminster political child sexual abuse cover up. I mean, there's a case in court that's been in court today, yesterday, a couple of days ago. They're calling the guy Nick, is the name they're using, who they've actually charged, and they're doing him saying that he's committed fraud and wasting police time, averting the course of justice or whatever else it is, who's gone forward and said that he was abused by Edwin Heath, the former Prime Minister, and other people. And they're actually they've taken him to court to try and show him as a liar so that then they can sweep this under the carpet.
Yep.
Not quite going to plan for them at the moment, especially not with the evidence that's out there. You know, recently some police forces or ex-police people have gone on record and said, you know, if he was alive today, Edward Heath, he would be questioned based on the evidence they've now got available.
Yeah, that was the Wiltshire Chief Constable, weren't it? He's now lost his job, hasn't he?
And again, cover-ups. The Cyril Smith, the Rochdale MP, they knew that there's evidence out there. People have come out of the woodwork now and admitted that they got told, police officers who found him with child pornography on his person when he was stopped driving, were told by higher-ups, I assume they mean like MI5, MI6, that kind of level, to shush. It was a matter of national security.
Cyril Smith was just Jabba the Hutt, wasn't he, really?
Yeah. But you know who Cyril Smith was good mates with? Jimmy Savile.
Yeah. Oh, Savile was just like the Pied Piper.
And you know what's more disturbing? And I link this together. If you go on YouTube and you go on youtube.com/celebrity hypnotist, which is my YouTube channel, or go to my website, magicalguru.com, and click on YouTube logo, it'll take you there. Click on the playlist, and there's one called Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis. It's got the web series preview to this documentary that's coming out in September. But there's also a video on there where I fully explain the links between Cyril Smith, Jimmy Savile, the Moors murderers who regularly went to Jimmy Savile's nightclub in Manchester, the Cray twins, and how they're all linked together into the heart of Westminster. It's all mapped out in a recording I did about 2.5-3 years ago, and it's coming to light more recently because of the Epstein thing. That, you know, it even goes to the point of, I'm not saying Prince Charles has done anything out of order, but he's kept some unsavoury friends. Ball, was it Ian or Peter? Peter Ball, the former Catholic minister, priest guy. Mm. Great friend, and even when he was done for messing with kids,
yeah, he still held him.
Gave him somewhere to live on his grounds.
Yeah,
you've got to go. Why? Why would you? And he was long-term friends with Jimmy Savile. And then you look at Jeffrey Epstein. What the heck was Prince? Let's get it right. Which Prince?
Andrew.
Doing on that bloody plane. Now, what was he doing? Being photographed with, admittedly, they say the girl was 17, but the girl in question, from what I'm seeing on the internet, is saying that she was forced into sexual relations. Why the hell is all this been coming out there for years? Why does it keep coming up again?
Do you know, can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
I want to, you know, it keeps coming up again and again and again and again. And I think I first heard about Jeffrey Epstein back in 2007 and what he was up to. And he was linked to Prince Andrew. I mean, Prince Andrew's he's a pretty benevolent member of the royal family. He's not really doing anything, is he? He's not an active. He's not the frontline member of the royal family. And so I don't think that there's a case of them sacrificing him. It's just that it's not as bad as if they got. It's almost as if it's a distraction away from the fact that Prince Charles and Jimmy Savile were as thick as thieves. You know, it's like a distraction away from that. Yeah, I'm just trying to look at you. I mean, you've come on this show, and I'm sure we're probably going to talk about this show, the new film, a lot more in the second hour tonight. But on this first hour, I mean, can you not see how? Because this, I'm talking about 2007. That's 12 years ago. I heard this, and nothing.
Well, he actually went to prison. He actually went to prison. He made a plea deal.
No, I'm talking about Prince Andrew. Nothing happened with Prince Andrew.
He came up and Epstein was going to prison. But he made a plea deal. So it got kind of skirted under the carpet. And of course he got the plea deal because the kind of people that were found in his black book and flight plans were people like Bill Clinton, one of the Podesta brothers, the Prince, and other incredibly rich and powerful people politically and in other manners. So if they can sweep it under the carpet, of course they would. And well,
I don't think it's there, but all I'm saying is that, you know, we get this royal connection, and we get this royal connection with Prince Andrew, who's been pictured with Epstein after he was released from prison for these charges. And so what I'm trying to say is that deflecting away from the more senior royals like Charles and you know, the Philip and what have you.
It very well could be. One thing for certain, nowhere near as many people are talking about the fact that Prince Charles was really good friends with Jimmy Savile, and Jimmy would go and spend the weekend at, one of Prince Charles's houses in Scotland. I think it was they went down to. I wanted to say Wales, I think, Prince of Wales, but I think it was Scotland. And there is some letter on the internet that has never been denied as being anything other than in the handwriting of Prince Charles, allegedly. He's never denied it. Where he wrote to Jimmy Savile saying, "Thanks for a wonderful weekend. Thanks for bringing the boys." Now, that could be entirely innocent. Of course it could.
Yeah, I understand that it can be entirely innocent. What the point I'm trying to make is are we being fed little tidbits to try and we get these little tidbits, we get these clues to different things, and then we all work out what the clue is supposed to be telling us. But do you think this is the stuff that's being brought out is simply covering up the actual truth of what is really going on?
I think the truth is bigger, yeah. With hypnosis, you see, one of the techniques of hypnotizing somebody or brainwashing and socially conditioning them is to get them into a theta state where they're more suggestible. And one of the easiest ways, well, there's two easy ways of doing that. One is through fear and trauma. The other is through disorientation and confusion. And if you can control the messages that get out there, and maybe have a little bit of truth in there that people can find to be truth or believe to be truthful, so their mind will connect to it and go, "Oh, I found something." But then also feed in a load of disinformation as well, which if you control the newspapers, let's say Rupert Murdoch, or you control the internet to a degree, I know we can all set up our own websites, but they can stop certain websites being seen if they want. Social media is becoming more evident. They're blocking alternative news channels and stuff, for example. So if you can control the element of what people are seeing so that they think they found something out, they find some bits of the jigsaw, but they end up confused, disorientated, they don't know whether to go this way or this way, so they end up in what we call the fight, flight, and freeze syndrome. Fight is hit it head on, yes, I'm going to really uncover this, boom. Flight is run away from it, too scared. Freeze is I don't know what to make of it, or turning a blind eye. Can be one or both, or a combination of the two, which sadly where a lot of people are at. But people think they know something, but they're scared of learning something else that could really upset them and change their worldview. Yeah, so yeah, of course they bought stuff out there to help stoke that confusion and disorientation.
You see, what you just described there, Jonathan, was Sky News, because you've got all the pictures in the background. They've got the person on the left, the person on the right, who are supposed to have either one interviewing the other or completely opposite views, and they haven't. They've just got the same view being put from a different perspective. So they're still going to eventually talk about the same outcome, which is what they want you to believe. Then there's all the stats up the left-hand side of the screen, and then there's the rolling banner across the bottom, and then there's the rolling banner going the other way across the top with all the FTSE index on it.
And you can't take all of that in consciously at once.
No.
But so if you're focused on what they're saying, what's coming across the screen, someone's been killed, trauma, don't leave your house, be scared or whatever, is going boom directly into your unconscious mind, or vice versa, to instill fear into people.
Yeah.
And that's where, people talk about false flag terrorism events. Now, just to clarify, my perception of false flag events is not that they're completely staged and never happened, although there are some that the evidence seems to show there are paid actors.
Like Boston.
A lot of them, actually, innocent individuals do get killed.
Yep.
Powers that be could have stopped it, but it's in their interest, to their benefits of their agenda, to allow innocent people to get killed.
So on 9/11, you would have been just as an example, you would have been a lie hop rather than a my hop. So a my hop is make it happen on purpose, and a lie hop is a let it happen on purpose. You'd be a lie hop with most these terror attacks.
No, you see, with 9/11, it's a bit different. With what had to be done, and the fact that certain people who would normally have been in the building on the day suddenly weren't, and all that kind of stuff, they definitely knew in advance. There was so much planning in that, and planting detonating charges inside the building. There's no bloody way that was a just let it happen. That was an involvement level thing.
Yeah, but you can understand that if American intelligence found this plot, that you know, they discovered this plot where they were going to be terrorists hijacking planes and flying them into buildings and then doing it. They might think, because if you look at the document from a year before, Project for a New American Century, where they said that they wanted to essentially take over the Middle East, but they said that in it, they actually admitted in the document that that for that to happen, there would have to be a new a catastrophic and catalyzing event, I think they wrote it as, like New Pearl Harbor. And then 9/11 happens, and it's a New Pearl Harbor. Now you can take that two ways, can't you? You could take it as they knew that that was going to happen because they were going to do it, or they knew that that was going to happen because they'd intercepted things. That was being planned.
I believe both of them occur. Which one it actually was, we may never know for certain, but either way, it still means that innocent people got hurt, killed, when they didn't need to. Manchester, where
but don't you just give me a second? As a researcher, as somebody who's looking into these things, these happenings, 9/11. Bombings, terrorist attacks, isn't it important for you to be able to separate yourself? I know you sat there and you're saying innocent people died. Yeah, well, we know that innocent people die in all these things, but you've got to separate from that to be able to look and get a decent perspective, because it seems to me that the emotion is what is the leading source of what's right and wrong. It's emotion. Yeah, so somebody who I know has been killed, right, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't care who killed them as long as somebody pays. And that's the way that we've sort of got with these terror attacks. You know, we can't get bogged down with that, because if we get bogged down with emotion, then your logical brain, the part of the brain that makes logic, isn't going to be able to work correctly, because, like you said earlier on, you're looking for a particular result from some information, and therefore the emotion is really a bad thing.
Exactly, but also that chucks in the confusion, disorientation, fear, and emotion all tying together. So yeah, you're completely right. So if we remove emotion from it, which is where I was going, I lived in Rochdale, not that far from Manchester. There was the Manchester Arena bombing, okay? And several days after the bombing at the Manchester Evening News Arena, one news report, well, numerous news reports if you're looking, but I saw one where it said the person who did it was on their radar. You often hear this. It was on our radar, but we were watching this person, but we had no indication that something was going to happen. Now, obviously, that could be a big fat lie, but they admit the fact that it was on the radar.
Yeah, well, the guy had got his dad apparently had links to Gaddafi. So it would have been on their radar anyway, wouldn't he? I mean, even if he's just like at the bottom of a little list where it says this guy who's worked with Gaddafi and he's on the bottom of the list because he's his son or whatever, he's still going to be on their radar, but they're not necessarily going to follow it up. You know,
no, especially not if they want something to happen to incite fear in people. But it's interesting that they always give you a little grain of something to look at or distract, or for people to get their head around, to distract from the bigger picture. 9/11, passport. Planes and buildings burn and melt, get destroyed, but a perfectly okay passport of apparently one of the terrorists is found. gives the newspaper something to talk about. It distracts the masses from looking at what's in it, who stands to gain from this.
I was just going to say, it's the same old recurring question, isn't it? Who benefits?
Yeah.
Oh, look, listen. We can talk about who benefits. We know who benefits from every situation that happens. Let's not get into this who benefits and who's to blame, but let's get into the psychology of it. This is why we've got you on tonight, Jonathan.
Psychology
of it. When you mentioned the Manchester bombings, now for me, one of the key things was it was, I don't know whether it's a result of the way that society has gone, this narcissistic society that we've got, or whatever, or whether it's actually just part of the little play along that they're doing. But I think it was a week after the Manchester bombing, and this couple who were cohabiting, they weren't married, but they'd lost their daughter in this bombing, apparently, and then they went on GMTV and announced they were going to get married in honor of her. This was a week later. You know, I've not been able to. I wouldn't be able to do that. I think I said at the time, I wouldn't be able to do something like that if it was a week after I'd lost a tenner. Remind me on fucking daughter. I won't be sat there on GMTV smiling with my stupid fucking face and saying, you know, we're going to do it in the memory again. That's a hook. That's an emotional hook, because you can't say anything about it. Because if you say something about it, you say, "Oh, that's just not right," you then become like some fucking sort of monster that's actually saying what most people are really thinking. And you know, the psychology of it all, it's just crazy. It's just absolute fucking. It's a complete nut job of the way that we've been manipulated. And I think we're going to get into that in second hour, aren't we?
A really interesting sentence you said, roughly paraphrase what you said, was about how situations occur where the majority of people are thinking the same thing, but society's been geared so that we feel we don't say anything.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people will attack us, kind of thing. And that's happening massively now with the transgender agenda. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, all that field of, you can't call.
Oh, I don't know if we should.
But you can't.
I don't think. No. Listen. All I mean is, I don't think we should get started on this now, because we're nearly at an hour. We're going to take a little bit of a musical break, and then we'll be back in the second hour, and we'll pick up on that. Believe me, the transgender thing.
How long's this musical break?
Say it again.
How long's the musical break?
About 3.5 minutes. So.
Just time to grab myself a quick drink.
Yeah, just enough time to make a cuppa.
And can you mute your microphone as well, and then it'll be all hunky-dory. Listen, guys, you're listening to Raconteurs News. It's Monday night. It's the 15th of July, 2019. I nearly said 17 then. No, I'm probably trying to go hark back to a golden age when I had two legs, but it's not to be. So it is 2019. We're going to have one record, and then we will be back, and we will be talking again to Dr. Jonathan Royle, and we might even get into his film as well. We've not even touched on it yet. That's what we were coming on for. We've not even touched on it yet, so we'll get into that as well. So just one quick record. Fucking this shit keeps fucking turning its set off. One record, and then we'll be back after this. See you soon.
I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care.
My arms are folded, oaking, malnutrition dulls my hair. My eyes are black and lifeless with an unprivileged stare. I'm the beggar on the corner, will no one spare a dime? I'm the child that never learned to read, cause no one spared the time.
I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10,
Even though I don't exist,
nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care.
I'm the murderer, the victim, I'm the license to a gun. I'm a sad-thumbed old lady in an alleyway in a slum. I'm a middle-aged businessman with chronic heart disease. I'm another teenage suicide in a street that has no trees.
I am a 1 in 10,
A number on a list.
I am a 1 in 10,
Even though I don't exist,
nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care.
I'm a starving third world mother, refugee without a home. I'm a housewife hooked on Valium, a pensioner alone. I'm a cancer-ridden specter discovering the earth. I'm another hungry baby, I'm an accident at birth.
I am a 1 in 10,
A number on a list.
I am a 1 in 10,
Even though I don't exist,
nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care. I am a 1 in 10,
a number on a list.
I am a 1 in 10,
Even though I don't exist,
nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care. I am a 1 in 10,
a number on a list.
I am a 1 in 10,
Even though I don't exist,
nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care.
Well, I hope that sounded okay. Anyway, that's Heath Dweft, 1 in 10. It's the cover of the old UB40 track, and I've got to love it. I just love it. It's just a top song. Anyway, we're welcome back to Raconteurs News. Me, Jason Holmes. Dave Hardy is with me as well, and he's there. Are you all right, Ade?
Yeah, the stuff that Jonathan's coming out with, I've just thought of a couple of things. You, Jason, you've been subjected to NLP. You've had the newspaper thing. Your wife's been subject to being NLP'd, but knows how to bat it away, if you like. I've done the media thing. And certainly been NLP'd in the training that I had to do with finance. And how the first couple of things that I wrote down in the first couple of sentences that Jonathan said is mentalist, and I don't mean he's mental, I mean, you know, he's a mentalist. And the film They Live, you know, where there's Rowdy Roddy Piper walking down with the glasses on, and as soon as he looks at a bill poster, it says, you know, buy more shit. And that's how I'd sort of summarize the first hour, if you like.
I keep losing you, Ade, mate. I keep losing you. I don't know if you are. Are you losing him there, Jonathan?
No, I certainly say just the odd bit of the odd word that disappeared, but generally it was okay.
Yeah, and they're just literally the first things that I wrote down. You know, the fact that we've both been subjected to NLP. And I said, well, I suppose everybody has without even realizing it. And what I wanted to get from Jonathan, certainly before we finish, don't have to be now, was how anybody who's seen the film They Live and where Rowdy Roddy Piper puts the glasses on, hopefully Jonathan's going to give us some glasses tonight, and then when we watch his film, he's going to show us how to use them. If I've got the film right in my head, is that right? Is that about right?
You are bang on, sir. Indeed. Obviously, when the film comes out, we'll go into more depth. But the more part of that promo for the film is that on the website Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis.com.
Yeah.
There is a little mini web series, a preview taster of what we're going to cover in the documentary. And there's 7 videos on there covering religion, education, politics, the media, and various other areas. And we go into showing visually how it's done to people, why it's done, who does it, and how to be aware of it so you can protect yourself, so that you're not going to totally avoid those messages or manipulative forces, because you've got to leave the house, you've got to walk up the high street. So like it or lump it, you are going to see billboards. Like it or lump it, you are going to be sat in a doctor's waiting room at some point and they've got the bloody radio run. So you can't avoid the input, but you can become more consciously aware of it, so that then once you become consciously aware, you can choose to push it aside, ignore it. The problem is when people walk around kind of like an autopilot, we go to work, we travel the same way every single day, it's that bloody set of traffic lights. They get so used to it being the same that they just kind of switch off consciously. At which point, those outside signal billboards and things, they're not seeing them consciously, but they're going boom, and they are going into the unconscious mind. And subliminally, it does have an effect. That's why in England, at least, I know there'll be people in other countries in the world who end up seeing this on YouTube, but in England, for example, for people this doesn't make sense to, Google afterwards and it will do, you'll see videos. But to most people in England, if I say drink a pint of, and they'll finish it off, milk a day. Or if
milk a day,
or if I was to say, which chocolate bar is relevant to work, rest and play?
Oh, it's a Mars bar.
Never eaten one. No, it's Mars bar. Because these things, even if you're not paying attention, in fact, they go into your unconscious mind.
Yeah, of course they do.
When you don't pay attention consciously. So the real key, and it's more difficult to do than just being aware of it, but the real key is to become more aware of what is going on around you. Live in the moment. Buddhism and meditation call it living in the moment. Being consciously aware of things. Because when you're consciously aware, something that you don't like, you've consciously said to yourself you don't like. So therefore, you've told what they call the critical faculty, the analytical area of the brain, that you don't like it. So
but doesn't that then, because that doesn't that then get stored in the subconscious mind, and then at a similar situation it will get triggered again, and then you will feel how uncomfortable you felt at the particular time you feel again, because subconscious mind doesn't have any there's no time, and there's no concept of time in the subconscious mind. So if you get
in your unconscious, subconscious, call it what you will, but in psychology they actually call it the unconscious. For things to get in there, either it's got to have got in because you weren't paying attention to things, so it bypassed the critical faculty, analytical area of the brain that's there to protect you, or a traumatic or disorientating or confusing or shocking moment or event has to take place at the same time, so that gives sensory overload to shut down the critical faculty for it to go into the unconscious mind, which is how phobias are instilled in people in a split second. Because, it probably wasn't that they were scared of spiders when they were tiny, but if their mother, for example, was scared of spiders and they saw their mum, who they love and respect and trust entirely, they're a little kid and a spider runs in the kitchen. The kid's fine with it, but then their mother screams, drops the dinner or whatever. Because of that trust and rapport they've got with their mother, who they love so much, immediately, that moment of shock and emotion, critical faculty shuts down, there's no logic involved. In that goes as a traumatic associative link of see a spider equals mum screams scared, get to a safe distance, so I must do the same. And then it becomes an instilled phobia for that person, which is why when I'm doing therapy with people, I don't need to talk over years and years of stuff with people. I just need to get them in their mind's eye to, as quickly as that moment of shock and fear made that connection, I need to be able to give them something that is so pleasurable and happy to release that. So it's no longer there to run as a program. So next time we see a spider,
wouldn't dealing with that have a better effect rather than trying to just dismiss it and just take it out? Would not dealing with that subconscious, the trigger that you were talking about, like you say, when people, let's just go 9/11 for a start. People who were around at the time of 9/11, they had that trauma, that wherever you were in the world, and if people were, if people saw it, there was some trauma involved, right? Because there were people similar to us, and they were in this building, and now every single year after that, on the same day, that trauma is embedded more and more and more and more and more and more. So what we're on now, we're on about 18 years since 9/11. So that has been put down into your subconscious for 18 years. So you've got 18 levels that you need to deal with it rather than just to dismiss it. That's my point. You need to actually deal with the problem that's triggering you, because if you don't deal with it, it will trigger you again. It will be.
Well, that's a complete fallacy, unfortunately. People would love you to believe that. Conventional psychiatrists and medical profession, especially conventional psychiatrists, and don't get me started on DSM-5, their handbook for medicines that get prescribed to people with alleged mental illness, because that's the biggest work of fucking fiction and monetary making bollocks on the planet. But it's a complete fallacy that you've got to uncover the root cause and remove it and all that. No, the human brain.
I'm not saying remove it. I'm saying deal with it. Come to terms with it.
You don't even need to come to terms with it. Entirely. If you've got a computer, for example, and it's running a bad program, it's got a virus, yeah?
We're not computers, though, are we?
The human brain's the most complex computer on the...
Exactly, but it's not a computer as we know it. It's not a computer as we know it.
In a similar manner.
I will agree that it works in a similar way, that whatever is put into it is what's probably going to come out of it. But I don't agree that it's similar to a computer, because it can be.
All I know is that over the past 30 years, I take people with issues, and without needing to know all the background baggage and stuff that conventional counsellors, psychologists and psychiatrists would, drag them through so they can take money off them every week and rip them off or prescribe them drugs unnecessarily. It's a big bloody pharmaceutical con game. If we go into their unconscious mind through hypnosis and effectively put antivirus software in, i.e. hypnotize them, give them suggestions, as long as we put in suggestions that have got more power, which means you either need to attach emotion or there's got to be some kind of motivation involved, but more power than that which is currently causing them negative harm, thoughts, feelings, emotions, or symptoms, then automatically, as long as there's more power with what you then put in, all of that just stops happening. You can't.
What I talk about a subconscious mind, and you talk about an unconscious mind.
No, right? It's the same thing. I just pointed out that in psychology, anyone with a psychology degree gets taught in a respectable so-called psychology, which is bollocks, because education is indoctrination. But they get taught it's the unconscious mind. Lay psychology, the subconscious.
If it was the unconscious mind, it wouldn't have an effect at all on you at all. It wouldn't have any effect at all. That's my point.
Yeah, it would.
Semantics.
When they're in comas, they still get effect from what's going on around them.
Yeah, subconsciously. So it's a subconscious mind. It's not an unconscious mind.
Call it.
It's still conscious of what's going on around it. It's just that it displays it to the individual that's experiencing it in a different way.
Yeah, we're just talking semantics here. It's irrelevant what you call it. Yeah, you're aware. There's a part of your mind that is aware of everything at all times, including stuff that you consciously ain't aware of. Peripheral vision stuff goes in.
Yeah, the same way as like news channels, they have things going across the bottom and they have things upside and, you know, these tickers and stuff like that. They know that that's going in subconsciously. You'll know that. But again, it's not unconsciously, it's subconsciously. You've subconsciously taken in that information and then you'll be able to recall that at another point when somebody else...
Well, psychologists would tell you you've done it unconsciously. Because the correct term, indoctrinated through conventional psychological training, is that it's the unconscious. Subconscious is the unconscious. It's just a bloody word, but they like to use different ones.
Well, for me, it's, again, the unconscious means that you're not aware of it, whereas you are. Because if you're unconsciously, if something happened in your childhood...
You're not aware of it.
Just give me a second. If something happened in your childhood, right, and... it was traumatic for you. Perhaps you got bit by a dog, and people are scared of dogs. That's the subconscious. It's not. There's no reason. There isn't like there's no reason why this guy's afraid of dogs. It's there in his subconscious, and for you to say that it's unconscious means that the scare, that, you know, being scared of dogs is something that's just like, you know, just a natural thing for him. Whereas it's not, it's from something that traumatically happened in his past. So it's definitely a subconscious thing rather than an unconscious thing. And I don't know why you call it unconscious.
The moment that traumatic event's happened, if it ends up in the unconscious, subconscious, call it whatever you want, back bit of the head, whatever, once it is there, that split second, if it's got enough emotion attached that it's going to manifest a symptom, in this example, fear of dogs, from that moment on, it does become natural in a painful manner, behaviour and reaction to that individual. So it does become natural to them.
But if it was unconscious, it wouldn't happen, would it?
Pardon?
If it was unconscious, it wouldn't happen.
There's loads
It
of...
wouldn't be conscious of that.
It's not right. There's a thing beyond hypnosis, which is compartmentalisation of the brain. Now, you see this around you if you go down the high street. People who are what mental health professionals would term got dissociative identity disorders or schizophrenia, things like that. Okay, multiple personality disorders, for example. When they are in one of those personalities, they, on no conscious or unconscious, call it whatever you want level, on no level whatsoever are they aware of any of the other personalities that they can flick into. And when they flick into one of the others, they're not aware of the one they were in previously. Because what has happened is compartmentalization in the brain. And this is sadly used, and there are declassified CIA documents relating to MK Ultra and the Tavistock Institute, and other MK derivative investigations that were done with the CIA in America, and also with the Tavistock Hospital and Institute in England post World War II, where it's trauma-based mind control. And you can use trauma to a level that people are so in fear and scared in that moment through the torture they're getting, whether that torture be psychological or physical pain, or a combination of both to amplify it, that the brain will go to protect itself. Like an antiviral, it would go quarantine it, boom, over there. Well, it becomes what they call a repressed memory, and it gets compartmentalized. And there are people who This happens multiple times, and that is what's happening with things like multiple personality disorders.
I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to put a position on a certain individual or what have you. This compartmentalization that you talk about, right? If that person's not aware of it, then it's not going to manifest itself, is it?
Well, it does manifest itself, otherwise...
If it's a subconscious thing, if it's something that they're conscious of, and remember, the subconscious mind, the only reason we have a subconscious mind is to protect the conscious mind, right? So, you know how you can, like, you might have a worry or something, and then you can put it to the back of your mind. That's your subconscious mind taking that away and storing it in a place where you're going to have to deal with another point, but then it allows you to sleep and do stuff like that. You know, so if you, what I'm saying is, all these things that you're saying, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't actually know what they are doing or can't recall what they've done.
Of course there is. Manchurian Candidate, for example, using compartmentalization of the brain, MK Ultra and other studies, and the late George Estabrooks, who wrote a book called Hypnosis, famous chapter in that. The book had to be recalled because he for some reason decided to talk about his work with MK Ultra and went into how to create a mind-controlled assassin. And so they quickly recalled the books and took that chapter out. But sometimes you get the odd copy come up on the secondary market. I can tell you without a word of a doubt that you can compartmentalize somebody's brain through fear, trauma, emotional manipulation, pain, and hypnosis, and if you want to make it even easier, certain drugs as well, so that they will end up going away and killing people on a given cue without any conscious or unconscious recollection, knowledge whatsoever. They would pass lie detector test, interrogation, the bloody law. They wouldn't have a clue they'd done it, and it's already happened. JFK is a prime example.
I'm not doubting that, right? I'm not doubting that happens, but that's a very clever way of compartmentalizing. You know, when you're talking about people that have got multiple personalities and they don't know what the other one's done, well, there are many cases where you'll get two multiple personalities arguing with each other, in the same person arguing with each other. And so things can try to be compartmentalized. All I'm saying is that it's always going to be to a point where you've got one option, you've got one road with somebody. You can compartmentalize and you can trauma-based mind control. We both agree with Neil Sanders, who's in your film. We've had him on as well. He's been a good guest, and I'm hoping to get him on very soon. He's been telling me that he's been coming on since Christmas, but I think I do understand he's not very well at the moment. But
yeah, he's had really bad back problems.
Yeah. But all I'm trying to say is that I think where we disagree, and for God's sake, let's start talking about your fucking film after this.
Well, ironically, because all this stuff is what the film goes into, but actually showing physical, visual examples of where it has happened in everyday life around the world, where it is happening in everyday life around the world, so that people can be aware of it, be consciously aware of it when it happens, rather than just walking past and it bloody filtering in and then affecting them without them being aware that it's bloody affecting them. So then they can start to take back control, rather than we live in a world where people think, because the powers that be want it to be that way, they think they have a choice or a bit of power in that they get to vote on who's going to be the next leader. Well, they don't at the minute in England, because that's just the people who are paid up. Conservatives get to vote who's going to be the next prime minister. But when it comes to an election, people think can vote here, 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 here. There's all different parties. It doesn't bloody matter who gets in. At the end of the day, the compromat blackmail material that your likes of Rupert Murdoch and the Secret Services have got will be used to leverage people into doing what they want. A wise man once said, and it does say it on Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis.com, I've forgotten the guy's name, but it's on the homepage, I think, said they think they've got freedom because they're given the chance to vote, but if there was anything worth, of true importance, they wouldn't be allowed to vote. Simple as that. It's all an illusion just to give people that feeling, a distraction from the fact that they're being told what to do. David Icke sums it up really well with problem, reaction, solution.
Hegelian dialectic.
Pardon?
It's called the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution.
They create whatever, whether it's a false flag or jumping on the back of a natural disaster's happen. Genuinely, we won't settle, won't expected, but they'll see that as an opportunity while people are scared, disorientated, confused, to go, hey, you know what? Because their reaction is, we're scared, protect us. We can protect you, but it means that we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do that. And they'll put a whole bunch of stuff forward, and the public will go, we'll agree to those things. In fact, we'll encourage them, please do it. Whereas if that event hadn't happened, whether it was a natural one they piggybacked onto or a manufactured one, people would go, why are they suddenly wanting more of this or more of that? But if an event just happened, they'll go, yeah, please do protect us with more armed people on the street. Please do put more surveillance cameras in. Please do more of this. And then it's like, oh, thank you, you've done it for us. It is literally, it was laid out years ago in 1984 by George Orwell and in A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. We are living, that is happening. What they put in those books is happening around us right now.
It is. Eddie, you've got to add, mate. Go on.
Well, I can't believe that we've now got in Huxley's book, he talks about 2 + 2 = 5. And we've got exactly that with doctors being told that they can't just say that there are 2 genders, that medically there are only male and female. So we are now literally in what Huxley said in the book of, we're going to get to the point where people will be told and will have to be made to believe that 2 + 2 = 5. And that is exactly what it. But the other clever thing they've done, and this has got to be in your film, and I've not even watched the trailer. I've watched the little trailer that Jason sent me, but and I want you to tell us where we can find these other lead ups as well again in a minute. But I bet this is in your film, how they'll take a word like phobia and change it, what it means. In other words, are you transphobic? Well, a phobia is an irrational fear of something, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So when somebody says, oh, look at that trans over there, as an observation, oh, you're transphobic. Because some dickhead on morning TV came on and said, oh, the world's full of transphobic people, and now you've got to be aware of it. So they steal a word, they make us believe that 2 + 2 = 4, equals 5, and all they're actually doing is subdividing us again and again and again and again and again to weaken us. And that is it's just all it is.
Well, people are confused, disorientated, or fighting or disagreeing on things. They can therefore band together to peacefully fight back against the powers that be. And it's definitely happening with the trans agenda stuff.
And this is what they do on the news as well, because they'll get 2 people on who are supposed to be at each side of an argument, and they're not.
No.
They never ask the question who benefits, so we can really find out what's going on. But they on the face of it, they're introduced as this guy from the black party and this guy from the white party. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. And all they are is 2 people looking at the same thing from a slightly different perspective. So the people watching it are then told, this is the only 2 ways that you can look at this. What you thought 10 minutes ago is completely fucking irrelevant, because the BBC now telling you that this is the only way you can think about it. And actually, it doesn't matter which one of these 2 people that you agree with, because they're both talking about the agenda anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what a political argument is. It's what any argument about almost anything is. So I'll be surprised if, especially where the 2 + 2 = 5 with the trans and stuff like that, and the stealing of the words like phobia. I'm just trying to think. Anti-Semitic. They've redefined anti-Semitic.
Yeah, and why? Because
it doesn't fit their agenda.
Yeah, and it would appear. I mean, I don't care who people vote for, because personally, Well, it's a pointless exercise because most of them will end up getting manipulated or killed or influenced out if they don't do what the bigger agenda is.
You've seen my avatar, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's on my back. That is a picture of my back.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, and no, it's not Avengers.
Well, you know, I mean, in Britain at the moment, it's like if we can make people believe anti-Semitic means this, which the media is doing quite a good job of, unfortunately, then people will believe that Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic or that Labour Party are.
Yeah.
I don't believe it, but there's always an agenda. And I mean, the trans thing, just going back this week, as we speak, within the past 7 days, the Olympic swimmer, Sharon Davis, who I believe is currently, I mean, it's irrelevant, but I believe she's been involved in both heterosexual and lesbian relationships. I only mention that because it should be irrelevant, but the point is she does not have anything against other sexualities, most definitely not. You know, she's been under attack on Twitter and other social media because she said it's unfair that transgender women, i.e. women who are physically now women and psychologically were women when they were born, but physically were men when they were born, are allowed post-op to participate in female sporting events.
Well, this is Jason's favourite bugbear at the minute as well.
And she's been attacked. Oh, you're anti-trans. And she said, no, everyone for themselves. I wish everyone, and as do I. She said, but it cannot possibly be fair that someone who's got a genetic underlying physiology initially of a male nature, even if you are more psychologically female, and I say more rather...
They're not more psychologically female though, are they? They're not. They just fucking want to win. They want to win and they think, I can't win it men's, so I'll go in birds.
Well,
but then the women are all on all this fucking left-wing sort of shit, and they're just getting fucked over. Feminists just getting fucked over by fucking transgender blokes, who are the very people that they don't want to get fucked over by.
There may be a small element of that, okay, but I mean, I do believe that there will be a larger number who were born, genuinely believe that they felt they identified.
No.
You see, my view isn't in the middle. My view is that when you create a situation or a situation becomes where you will get somebody who genuinely believes they were born in the wrong body. I get that. You know, if that happened to you, then I'm sure it's not good to live with. And those people, you know, would then want to participate. I get that. But whenever you get a situation like that, there will always be the ones who take advantage of it. Case in point, the rapist who changed his gender to be female, who was sent to a women's prison, who then abused women while he was in fucking prison. The world's gone mad.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. That is a bloody scaringly ridiculous. When you say it, the brain just goes, what? How could
But people watch this bollocks on the news and they go, well, you know, we shouldn't be saying anything bad. My daughter's a lesbian. She lives with another girl. She used to be married to a different one. She's got a little boy, thanks to a syringe and a mate, and a legal paper that was written to say that Dale's the dad, but he's not.
Yeah.
You know, he's sperm donor only. And if she was sat here, she'd agree with us. Because she just says, well, I don't want special rights. I just want the same rights. I just, you know, and that's it.
And that, in that key sentence, it's supposed to be equal.
Not special.
Not special. That, which is exactly what Sharon Davis is on about, because ultimately, arguably, it has become special.
Yeah.
And that then becomes unfair in the sporting arena. But again,
of course it does.
Allow this to happen, and they encourage it to happen because it divides opinion and it causes people to fight. It causes people to disagree.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of stuff. They're not concentrating on themselves as much as they could, their family, their friends, their loved ones, and achieving what they could do in life. no, they're going, oh, isn't life terrible? This is happening, and they're distracted by so many things when they could be focusing more.
And putting it all on bloody Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, that's there to addict you. I mean, what a wonderful psychological operation that is.
I wish I'd thought of it.
I mean, well, let's just say that Zuckerberg didn't. He's had to, but there was another guy, name escapes me at the minute, but he came up with the proprietary software behind it all, not Zuckerberg as he's generally held to be. He's just a young, trendy person at the time to get the youngsters on board. We all share with each other. And it's engineered to get you addicted. Because it's awesome, and then suddenly ping, oh, half a dozen people have just liked my photo. It makes people feel special, loved, wanted, needed. Oh, that's great.
My mum used to tell me I was special.
Well, but I won't. What we did in our day, I suspect you're probably a tiny little bit older than me based on what we were speaking about before, but in our kind of day, yeah, it was actually more a case of there weren't social media, there wasn't mobile phones. So there was more personal communication and stuff. That's been eroded and taken away.
On purpose?
Largely on purpose. I do believe, yeah. Obviously because mobile phone companies make money out of selling phones, but I think it's always been an agenda to take us tiptoe down. Because, for example, when I was young, and by young I mean about 6-7 years old, my dad suddenly came home with this box about yon big, about the size of what we call a microwave oven now. And that's because it was a microwave oven. But I'd never seen one, heard of one before. But it turns out now, as I've grown up and looked back, we got them in England when I was about 5 or 6 to the mainstream consumer. Some catering companies had them. But they got in America for like 20 years earlier. Certainly in industrial, professional basis. Stuff gets released to us at times for purposes. The same with mobile phones. We had them in England. Well, I had my first mobile when I was about 15, but on the circus, even when I was about 10, so about 1985. And even a bit before that, people were carrying around a car battery with a phone.
Yeah.
There were more radio phones, but it was the start of mobile phones. But they'd had them in America. The military had had them for decades earlier.
Well, when they brought out the first iPhone, what was his name? Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
He invented jack shit. He invented nothing. All he did was get all the military grade technology that was already out there that wasn't patented, put it all in this plastic thing, put a screen on it and went, yep, we can sell them.
And that's the interesting thing. Often these things, you look, what we used to cook our food, microwaves, they had before us in America, but then you look, where did the technology come from? Lots of these things, when you investigate, go back to military purposes that they've then found a consumer use for down the line to make more money.
GPS.
But they had that technology before. What were they using it for? It's like now 5G. I segue into 5G here because more and more military in England, there's more and more homeless on the streets in England. Well, worldwide, but England, going to Manchester, you see it, Yorkshire, Leeds, all. And lots of these are ex-military. They're not, they've got what they're labelled as having as post-traumatic stress disorder. But there was a time that people came back and it was called shell shock.
Yes.
Same thing. They suffered a trauma and they got over it through certain techniques, but those techniques don't seem to work as well anymore. Now, my conjecture of that is that, and I've no cast iron proof on this one, so this is partly conjecture, other than Dr. Robin Kelly, the medical GP I mentioned earlier, who's done a lot of study into this, who's in the documentary, covers similar things. It's that the technology, 5G, is millimeter waves. It's completely different than 4G. People think, oh, it's just an upgrade. No, it's totally different technology. And the majority of evidence out there shows it can cause cancer, illnesses, disease, all manner of shit. But that ultimately, it's a military-grade weapon system. It's been used on the war field in the past. And I believe more and more of the people that are coming home that end up homeless with post-traumatic stress disorder, the reason the conventional techniques are no longer working as well for them is because they've not got post-traumatic stress disorder. They've actually got brain damage.
Yeah.
Caused by 5G millimeter wave technology used on the battlefield. And yet they want to put that on every high street in England and around the world. Fortunately, more and more people are waking up. And there are countries where they've called a halt to it and gone, no, not until more research is done. But unfortunately, us in England at the minute, it looks like you're going to be rolling it out real soon. Not good.
Yeah, and we had a guy on last week who would completely argue with all of that and say, no, 5G is fine. Yes, we went to the moon. Money is real. It doesn't. And he was just, but the Earth's definitely not flat. It's got to be round. Every single thing that you could think of, he used to believe, but now he doesn't.
Okay. At least we got to go with him, though, didn't we? We got to go.
Sorry.
We got to go with him, didn't we? We're at least able to bring things to his attention that he think about. Yeah,
of course. But I'm really interested in like what you've just said, Jonathan, about it now being brain damage and how it is further, and it does make sense because I had grandparents who never spoke about.
They're letting them be helpless because they don't want them to go into the system of being helped, because ultimately they know the conventional techniques wouldn't work for them because they know they've got brain damage, not PTSD.
Yeah.
They know percentage.
I haven't spoken to her for a long, long time, but I had a lady that helped me, and she was a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever. And at the time, I'd got a member of my family who was in a relationship with a guy who'd come back from, I want to say Afghanistan, but it might not be. And basically, he'd gone out on patrol and come back, and he'd swapped a shift with his mate, just so that he could have a Skype call with his mum on his mum's birthday, I think it was. I might have got that bit wrong, but he'd swapped a shift with his mate, a patrol, and his mate got killed. So he came back, and to this day, as far as I know, I've not spoken to him for a long time. But to this day, he believes that he don't deserve to be here and he should be dead.
Well, yeah, PTSD or so, that's survivor syndrome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Now, this lady who I was talking to at the time, she said he doesn't need psychology. He needs, and I forget what technique that she said that he needed, but she said, and you need somebody who's been doing it for a long time.
Wasn't EMDR, was it?
Don't know.
Eye movement desensitization and reprogramming.
Don't know.
It's a thing where basically, in a nutshell, there's more to it than this, but the kind of basic technique, you've got like a torch, flashlight, you get somebody to stare at it. They're thinking about the thing that's causing those issues, and you effectively move the light around, left to right, and then get them to blink and stuff. And there's a bit more to it. I won't say, because if people go away and just randomly try it, it could be dangerous. And the idea is that we have the right side of the brain, left side of the brain. And when we experience things traumatically, they're supposed to move experiences from experiencing it in the now from one side of the brain, which depends on whether you're left or right-handed, where you're predominantly brain sections for you. And then they're supposed to filter through kind of to the other side and then kind of filter away. Unconscious, call it what you will, filing cabinet, it's done with. But when trauma or shock becomes involved, sometimes it just gets stuck there. It doesn't get processed. And this technique allegedly, and the reason I say allegedly is not to dismiss it, because it does work for a hell of a lot of people, but I believe it works more so for an element of ritualistic importance and placebo effect, more so than it does actually through any, as they call it, hemisphinx, apparently synchronizing both sides of the brain by moving the light from left to right and getting the eye to follow it. I believe actually it's more about giving the person a situation where they've got permission, an important seeming authority figure, the so-called expert, doctor, psychiatrist or whatever, an environment where they feel safe, the consulting room, permission to change, whether they're in the environment and context of, if I do this process, I can then stop having this nightmare and move on with life in a way that socially seemed to be acceptable, because it had to go through a therapeutic encounter or encounters. So it wasn't just a click of the fingers and it's done with. So that if people say to them, oh, you appear to be all right now, how did you get over that? They don't have to go, oh, well, I just decided to stop worrying about it, which would make them feel bad and amplify the negativity. They can go, oh, well, I've had therapy for this. It gives them permission to offload all that negative connections, the self-blame, the self-shame, self-guilt, self-regret, all the negatives that have stacked up that keep causing that nightmare. They're allowed to kind of metaphorically leave behind in the therapist room, because they've kind of got this shield psychologically that if people go, well, you suddenly seem to be getting on better with life. How's that happened? Why didn't you do it sooner? They can go, well, I did try, but I needed the help of a therapist. So then they're to blame for not having got there sooner, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to move us on to your film.
Okay.
First of all, the trailers and that you mentioned, tell us where we can find those again.
All of them, the trailer for the film and also what we call the web preview series. So there's like 7 episodes ranging from about 6 minutes long to 20 minutes long, covering religion, education, medical system, politics, newspapers and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're all on the website Extreme Danger, extremehypnosis.com. That's one easy way to find them, or if you prefer less typing than that, just type in Magical Guru, that's magicalguru.com, and then click on the button that says Extreme Danger, Extreme Hypnosis, and you'll get it all.
Right, okay, so that's going to tell people a bit about the film. Obviously, you're looking at it from the neuro-linguistic programming, etc.
Programming is a bullshit title that was invented by a guy called Dr. Richard Bandler in America, just because in the state where he was living and working, you weren't legally allowed to call yourself a hypnotherapist unless you had certain genuine medical qualifications.
Right.
So what he did was he renamed it neuro-linguistic programming so that he could say that rather than hypnotizing people, he was just putting them into an eyes closed relaxation process. It's basically hypnosis when it's done properly. It was just to get around the law. So people ban these terms around and it confuses things. Essentially, it's all hypnosis. And you know what? Any communication, arguably, when it's used, hopefully with positive intent, but sadly, individuals with an agenda use it with negative intent. When communication is used with an intent to control and manipulate people to do something they weren't thinking about doing, arguably that is hypnosis. And it happens in all areas of your life. Even your husband, your wife, your partner will use hypnotic techniques without even realizing they are doing, because an unconscious, subconscious, or in the back of the filing cabinet, call it what you will, level, they know that you particularly like, let's say, a certain chocolate bar. And that day, they might not have done it with nasty intent, but they've been shopping and they thought, oh yeah, I want to talk to the other half about changing the sofa later. Oh, you know what? I'll get them that chocolate bar or that dessert. And then after tea, they'll serve you up this dessert that makes you feel good. You've not had it for ages. Seems completely innocent. And then while you're still feeling good, they'll hit you with, how do you reckon we will get a new sofa next week? Now, that's a very low-level example. That's miles apart at first face value from guiding somebody consciously to end up hating a certain race, religion, or gender, to cause divide in society, to cause war and distraction. But ultimately, it still does come down to manipulating people's emotions and feelings. And that's easier to do if you take something they already feel good about and then pull on it. And while they're feeling good, throw in something that would normally make them feel bad. But because they're on a big high at the moment they're given this, rather than feeling as bad as they normally would, it kind of drowns out the negativity, so it becomes more.
I once watched a really good salesman, and there was this couple looking at this, and it's when big TVs were like mentally expensive and quite rare. And this couple are looking at it, and I don't even remember what I was in the shop looking at, But I heard him say he walked straight up to him and he just said to him, "How would you like to pay for it?" Just bang, straight in. And she looked at him and she went, "Should we just put it on the credit card?" And he went, "Okay." Sale done. Job absolutely. He killed him. One line, bang, straight in.
Shop.
Yeah.
Well, NLP winky title. They call it a pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
The last thing they would have expected a salesperson to say at that moment is to be that presumptive that they're going to buy.
Yeah.
Because mentally, a salesman means he's going to try to get you to buy, but you're led to believe, make the decision yourself.
Yeah.
So if you suddenly come out and go, how are you going to pay for it, which is presuming that you've already made the decision that you are going to buy it. Total shock to the brain. This is not what a salesman should do. He's supposed to make us feel we're ready to buy and go, yes, please, we want. So that moment of disorientation, shock and confusion, critical faculties bypassed. Both of them are probably in the fight, flight, freeze. What the fuck should we do? One of them comes up with the suggestion of wants to escape that feeling of confusion and goes, we can put it on the credit card. And the other one, their escape route is to just agree. And yeah, the salesman will have done that by design. They do it in time all the time.
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. So what can we expect? What can people look to find in your film that they can't look to find in others? Because the sort of people that watch and listen to us are, let's give them the horrible title. They're the ones who look at the flat Earth, the moon, all the JFK, all of the everything 9/11 that you could ever. That's the sort of listener that we generally get. What is it about your film that comes at it from a different angle?
Yeah, what you've just described is what I'd say a lot of lay people who haven't looked into these things would call the tinfoil hat brigade. And I don't mean that negatively, because arguably I'm part of that brigade. To lay people who don't understand, who haven't scraped the surface and looked. What I believe we bring to the table with this film is a base of evidence, because in the actual film, we look at things that have genuinely happened, and we look prior to them genuinely happening. I mean, David Icke's a great example. In 1999, he released a book called The Biggest Secret, okay?
He did.
Now, if you get that book, and I always say to people, if you're going to buy it, buy a second-hand copy. I always say, sorry, David, I know that's less royalties for you, but if people buy the new version that's out, they'll think when they look at it, oh, he's just saying that, he's revised it. But if you get a second-hand copy that was printed in 1999, then when you're looking at what he said would happen, and you see that it happened, and not just that, it happened roughly within the time frames he said it would. To this day, it's still happening. Transgender thing and mobile phone, social media, and all that. Then you can look at it and go, well, hang on a minute.
And Ted Heath. It wasn't that the book that he called out Ted Heath.
Ted Heath, Jimmy Savile, yeah. And you look at that and you go, well, hang on a minute. This is now accepted as fact because it's gone into the mainstream media. But back then they were saying he was bonkers. Something's only bonkers until the mainstream can't escape it anymore, that they have to accept there's evidence there.
Yeah.
What you can do as a citizen, journalist, truth researcher, conspiracy theorist, whatever. And that title was conjured up by the mainstream to make people think it's a bad thing to think outside the box and investigate things.
Yeah, it's a conversation killer. Oh, he's just a conspiracy theorist. It's just a thought killer.
Conspiracy facts and evidence. Yeah. But we still say, don't believe a word I say. Don't believe what I'm saying about religion, politics, banking. I give you names. I give you certain things to look at and facts and And it doesn't matter if you end up disagreeing with me, as long as you question things more in life. Too many people get distracted by the confusion, disorientation, divide and conquer, the politics, the fear of Brexit. What'll happen if we leave with no deal? You know what? Very little in the long term. That wouldn't happen the other way. Other than some people being scared and because of that not seeing the bigger agenda and not getting on with their lives.
That's precisely that conversation with my boss this morning in the office while we were doing some work together.
So, you know, hopefully it's going to get people to, obviously people who are already looking into flat earth or looking into moon landings, they're already going to be of a mind that they look at things that are more open to them. To them, maybe it'll be a slight element of beware confirmation bias, because there's two dangers here. There's the danger of loads of people out there not entertaining the possibility of things at all, so not considering both sides of the equation, which is sadly the majority of people. And then there's a smaller percentage-wise people out there that are waking up, but they're taking some things too easily and readily because they've got evidence for one thing being fact, and they know therefore guaranteed fact that's fact. They've experienced it themselves. They've got evidence for that. Because of that, they then allow themselves to believe everything else without giving that the same due care and attention that they originally did over here. So it's from both point of views, hopefully a point of balance that we're coming from. And ultimately, because I've been a hypnotist, both on stage and therapeutically, and I was involved with, sadly, behind the scenes, and I've got links to the now defunct News of the World, and I'm suing Murdoch. I am aware of things from the inside that I'm not supposed to know about. Could I experience them? Now, some of them I can't talk about still, but the ones that have already been matters of subjects of court cases, I do talk about in depth during the documentary with evidence, because I can't get put in jail for contempt of court. But, you know, a prime example I gave earlier is that, you know, they knew about Jimmy Savile, they had evidence of Rolf Harris, and they locked the evidence away in a safe.
Yeah, and then you get people like Esther Ranson, who's running Childline.
Well, that was just a direct line, Childline. I'm not saying that Esther Ranson set it up for that purpose, but she was encouraged and helped funded by very dodgy people. She may not have known they were dodgy, but because when you rang, it was anonymous and tip off the police. Well, that, no, what you were tipping off was, let's find out if any of the people are being brave enough to dob in the MPs or the VIP celebrities.
Yep, exactly so.
Hence,
Jason.
May lost all the sexual abuse files when she was Home Secretary.
Do you know that's right? And I'd forgotten about that one.
Yeah, and lost all the files. How interesting. That makes it really difficult now that they are doing the sexual abuse inquiry, because all that period of files has vanished. How strange.
Yeah, it is amazing, really. It's a good job they didn't trust Hillary Clinton with it. She'd have fucking emailed it to everybody.
Well, yeah.
Jason.
Yes. I'm just watching this, and I'm just sort of thinking, and for me, a lot of this seems to be set up. It seems coordinated. I don't know. I just don't know what. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know what the you know, what the motive of the people that are doing it is. But I just think there's a lot of this, and I know there's a lot of child abuse goes on, but what we're being fed, I mean, we cannot trust what we're being fed out, can we? We can't trust what we're being fed by mainstream news. We're sat here and we're talking about mainstream news and that's all shit and everything, and yet then we're quoting it on some degree, on some level, and it just I just listen. I'm really looking forward to seeing your film when it comes out, Jonathan.
It is that all of it, roundabout way, whether it's through causing people psychological harm and mental health problems or physical harm, we go into that with all the genetically modified food stuff and Monsanto and all that. That I'm sure some of your viewers will be aware of the theories relating to them. It all ties in with Agenda 21 to depopulate the planet.
Again, you know what? You know, when I hear somebody quoting Agenda 21, I'm sorry, and I know this is bad for me, but I do sort of hear somebody who's just heard something and then just is quoting it back, and I'm sorry that if that's you.
Well, look at the Agenda 2030, which effectively is Agenda 21, but just in more depth.
Yeah.
What it says, they use fancy words. Obviously, they do, so it looks innocent. oh yes, we need to, we need to help control the levels of the population on the planet because we're draining the Earth's resources. And it'll be phrased all as though it's a benefit to mankind. But when you read between the lines, it is about, at the end of the day, like it or lump it, it's about making there be less people on the planet. And there's no escaping that. Whether or not it's got a negative underlying.
I've been in this since 2006, right? I went through all the 9/11 stuff, the 7/7 stuff. I've been through all the financial crash in 2008. I went through it all. I've been through the whole lot of it. Now, what I do know is when there's something being presented to people, and it's being presented to people in a way where they feel that they perhaps are one of the few people that knows that. Essentially, Agenda 21, Agenda 30, and all this. And while I understand that these are real things, I don't know whether these are being fed to people and whether people are just like clinging on to them and just because, listen, I've been in this game for so fucking long, and I've seen so many times where people have predicted the end of the financial system. They predicted the end of the fucking world, essentially. I've just been in this situation for such a long time, and there have been so many people that have come to me with so much evidence about stuff, but nothing really ever changes. So what's going to change with your story? We've gone over. So I'll give this next, however long it takes. But what do you think we're missing? I think there's something missing. That's the thing that really bugs me, is that we're missing something. There's stuff that's being fed to us, and there's stuff that's like a home run, but then there's something that's not being fed to us that could be a home run that's not being.
As simplistic as this sounds, and this will make way more sense when the film comes out and you see it and you look at the kind of background preview trailers on Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis.com. But you know what the missing link is? I agree with you entirely. Some of the stuff out there is probably dangled as like a carrot, a distraction technique. Let them think about that and be occupied with that. Whereas some of it is uncovered, and it's uncovered. They didn't want you to know, but it's uncovered and it's true. But there's an equal thing with them both, that it ends up being a distraction for some people. And all of this is about keeping people distracted from a bigger picture. And that bigger picture on one level, when we talk about conspiracy theories or facts, is about who's in control, who's going to have more power, who's going to have more money, who's got this feeling of grandiose power because they're abusing kids on the quiet, or they own all this land. But it's actually simpler and bigger than that. All those things are going on for one reason or another. And yes, there are some of it, the distractions aren't what they appear. Totally agree with you. But in all of the cases, all of those things distract us as human beings from the fact that as human beings, we're far more capable of achieving way more in our life. And we can be truly happy. We can live in heaven, and hell is created inside our minds. It's a construct. The digital universe, science, so-called conventional science, whatever face you put into that, says that because we just experience things as light and sounds and sensory stimulation, we're basically living in like a holographic universe, in which case we can manipulate and control that ourselves. And hypnotists do that to make people feel better, overcome habits, fears, addictions, phobias. Politicians do it to control people. Religious people do it to make people feel guilty if they've sinned, so they have to follow the one true God. It's always about pain and pleasure. It's not, but always at the core, it's distracting that individual from the fact they should only answer to themselves. As long as they don't cause harm to anyone else, look after number one, rather than thinking too many people are conditioned into you've got to work for slave master, 40 hours a week, 40 weeks of the year, 40 years of their life, and then retire on 40% of the money they could barely live on in the first place. Because there's so many things going on in life that there's paying out for this. They feel they must have the latest 800 quid iPhone to fit in. Society advertising makes them do it. Whereas if they got a cheaper phone, 100 quid, and saved the 700 quid, or spent some of it and saved 100 quid, and then each year when other people were getting the fancy iPhone, put money away, when they're older, they'll be able to retire earlier. They'll be able to spend more time with the kids, the family, rather than dying and having all these regrets. The real thing they're hiding is that they can do what the fuck they want, because they know they can manipulate and distract and do what the bloody hell they like, and they're laughing their cocks off, for want of a better phrase, the majority of people who are buying in to the bullshit of the reality is they want people to perceive it.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said then. I do feel there's a lot of personal responsibility that needs to be put upon people's shoulders, and we can't walk every person through the things that are going to come up in their lives. We can't do that, and it's just impossible to do that. And I know what you're saying, but what you're saying is almost at a point where it's so simplistic that people feel like they'll be able to do it, but then again, when real life attacks them and comes at them again, then they might be up shit creek.
And that's where using things like self-hypnosis, so that somebody feels resilient enough to get on with things, even when they become Jonathan Livingston Seagull. You look at that book, he's flying out and he's the odd one out, and all the rest of them start attacking him. Well, that's how the powers that be gear society, so that if somebody starts to wake up and try and do something differently, they look like the odd one out. So other people go, what the hell are you doing that for? And the person then is more likely to step back into line. If more of us collectively together are supportive for each other, you don't have to agree with everyone's point of view. Of course not. That's never going to happen. That's an impossible dream.
Jonathan,
we could agree not to criticise people for choosing to open their mind to other possibilities.
Jonathan, I just want to wrap this up with I don't know if it's a question or a statement.
Okay.
Do a poem instead. Do a poem.
No, I'm not into poems.
Do a poem.
No, I don't do poems.
AD, I am such a geek. Here's my poem for you to streak to.
No, the only poem I know is that political correctness should be illegal. Anyway, if I was to point somebody who was who would probably label me as a conspiracy theorist to something to watch on YouTube, they would probably, it might. What I hope is that your film, because of the perspective that it comes from, it's not from a case of don't believe that because it's the government feeding you bullshit. You're coming at it from a point of view of, are you sure it's you that's really believing that, or is that what's being planted in your brain subconsciously or unconsciously? Yeah. Please don't get into that for the next 20 minutes, you two.
Right, yeah. That is
so what I would love to see, and I hope it is that that's the perspective that it comes from, and hopefully this is the sort of film that will get people who wouldn't normally look at this stuff to look at it purely because of the angle that it comes from.
And that's my desire as well, because I must, in the space of it's an hour and 50 minutes, but I imagine that it'll be a good dozen times during that when I stress the fact, don't believe a single word I'm saying, even though I'm showing you stuff that you already know to be true, but I'm just showing you more of the context around it. Can we visit various places in London? You know for a fact that building is, I am there, for example, outside St. Paul's Cathedral. Fact, no question of that. you know that has got religious links. Fact. There's certain elements that immediately, no question, you know for a fact. All right, there could be the argument I was in front of a green screen. I wasn't, though. I was definitely there. So we accept those things as fact. But then I say, look, what I'm about to tell you now about the fact that there's a reason that the bigger the church, the more power it has, for example, and we go into the fact of acoustics.
Yes.
How it makes the voice echo and beam and gives it more authority, but also it vibrates on a frequency. That means it is more likely to bypass the critical faculty of the brain. That's why when you buy self-help recordings these days, you'll hear some of the good ones have what they call binaural beats in. You probably even know more about them than me, you guys.
Yeah.
DJ in a music background. But it's about frequencies and vibrations. And we look at stuff and we go, right, so you can go and research that and find that that's fact. Put them together. Is it just coincidence that they were designed this way, the buildings, or was it by design? Now, if you accept the fact it was done by design, and it's your decision to do the research, then why would they want to do that? Well, because they know it's going to make you more suggestible and therefore they can have more control. That's a starting point. We're going to more depth to the point of literally to the point where they're taking money off you, telling you what to do with your life and controlling you. But yeah, all of it leads to a point, well, there's the evidence. We've shown you how it can fit, how the jigsaw fits together. But that could be all coincidence. But really, are there going to be like those 20 different coincidences?
Yeah.
Decide for yourself. So yeah, I think it'll be a bit more palatable for people who, it's certainly from a watching it point of view, from the rough cuts of what I've seen, it's less conspiracy theory presentation and more, let's look at historical facts that people already know. Well, let's look behind what you already know.
What was that? What was that a conscious decision?
Pardon?
Was that a conscious decision to make it less conspiracy theorist?
In presentation, yeah, because that puts people off initially looking. And the major message of this is, please start questioning things. Your choices are your own, or at least they can be your own when you examine things from all different points of view. Too many people think they're making their own choices, but they're being influenced through all the subliminal chatter of everyday life from different angles.
Yeah.
Start to question things. Don't just believe something you see on the news. Check out alternative sources as well. Numerous, several. Because they'll all say very different things. And even news sources owned by the same. If you look at Rupert Murdoch-owned company, he owns the Sun newspaper, the tabloid, but he owns the Sunday Times and the Times. Very different target markets. And on the same day, they will cover the same news item. But you read them both, and it's like a totally different thing's happened.
Yeah.
They're talking about the same thing, because this, they want to appeal to you, this level of people, and this, they want to appeal here, and they're stimulating what they believe for their own agenda. And yet they're reporting the same bloody event that happened, and it's the same media company, so you'd think they'd report it in the same way, but no, it's purposefully done. When people start, people who go conspiracy theories, no, little things like that, like going, look, here's a copy of today's Sun newspaper, here's a copy of the Times. This thing happened, what news outlet did you watch? All right, what did it say happened? Now look at what it says in the Sun, now look at what it says in the Times. They're all different bloody stories. And yet, only one event happened. So how can it be so differently, factually, apparently, with what you read? Because they've got different agendas to push.
Yeah. So we're looking at Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis.com or magicalguru.com. That's where people can find everything. Any other ways of contact that you want to make people aware of? Facebook or anything like that?
Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis.com's got the trailer on and the web series, but you can find that even easier through magicalguru.com. If you go on magicalguru.com, click on the YouTube logo, you'll get my channel, and if you click on playlists, there's one called Extreme Danger Extreme Hypnosis.com, but inside there are some videos, quaintly enough, because we mentioned the term earlier, called tinfoil hats, where I go further into the whole Jimmy Savile, Cyril Smith, Moore's Murderers, Cray Twins, and VIP sexual abuse cover-up stuff that some people might be interested in, because that is a real big key of it as well, which is why David Icke called his 1999 book The Biggest Secret and named people back then, because that is being used as a control, blackmail, leverage to get people to do things that the higher-ups want.
I've got just one final question, which is, how much was left on the cutting room floor, and when do you think you'll be in a position to do the second one? Because there's bound to be one.
Oh, well, from what Richard told me, we ended up with something ridiculous. Like, I mean, literally, probably more than a day's, you know, like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of footage that hasn't been used. He's had to take bits from each.
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen it yet, the end result. I'm not going to see it until it's out to the public. I was told I could see it as it went along, bit by bit, as it was edited. And I said, no, can I stand by everything we've done in it? You've now got the impossible job, Mr. Producer and editor, of somehow taking hours and hours and hours of footage and fitting it into less than 2 hours and still keeping the narrative there and the message strong, but making sense.
Yeah,
so,
it's not a job I'd like.
No, so yeah, I mean, he's probably already got enough footage for Mark II, as it were.
Yeah.
But let's see how Mark I's accepted first. If more of the, shall we say, not yet as awakened as people like your good self start to ask more questions and do a bit more digging.
Well, I think at the end of the day, that's all we can all hope for, is that more people start to question their own thoughts, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And that really is it. And you can call it waking up, not being a shit. You call it anything you like, but that's what it is. And like you say, we'll never all agree with each other. Never. And, whoever I listen to, I guarantee I won't agree with everything they say. A lot of it I might, or some of it might make me think about things. But the important thing is to get your own brain ticking over so that you're thinking for yourself and not that, the self is thinking for you.
Reacting in the way that society conditions you that, they've said that, it's like the number of people who tweeted the other day on Twitter, Sharon Davis, what we mentioned earlier, attacking her for saying that it wasn't fair.
Do you know, I still can't remember whether it was Sharon Davis or Farrah Fawcett Majors that was the first woman that I ever had sex with on my own. I still can't remember.
Anyway, I think that's a good point to end this show on.
Yeah, something nice and light-hearted.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, listen, absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Jonathan Royle, for joining us. Your film will be out in
this week of September.
September, yeah. So we'll be able to find it, won't we?
Yeah, oh yeah. With those links I gave out, you will. It'll be on Amazon, Prime, Vimeo on demand, and on those web links. But when it comes out, I'll send you guys. A review copy, so you can. You don't need to buy it. You two.
And what I'd love to happen is, when it's been out for a while, I'd love you to come back on, and talk to us about the feedback that you've got and what you might want to do differently, and what if there was a part 2, we could look at. You would change her and things like that, because everything's a learning experience, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. There will be feedback that we go,
yeah,
I wish we'd done that differently, and then there'll be bits where we go, but hell, people are so into that bit, I wish we'd featured it more. And of course,
yeah, of course there is, yeah.
And obviously you guys, when you've had a look at it, will be able to give me your feedback as well. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Well, a big thanks to everyone who's been in the chat room tonight. James Howe, Richard Blake, Sandra Edwards, New Being, Ron Malcolm, James Howe, everyone that's been in the chat room tonight. We thank you. Like Scott's Tots on The Office. If you've not seen it, look at that episode. Scott's Tots. We'll be back on. We might be back tomorrow. I don't know yet. But you'll see us soon anyway. We love you. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Thanks to Ade. And we'll see you soon. Tomorrow a bit. Bye, everybody.
See you later. Thank you.